What's the rudest thing a guest has ever done in your home? Everyone has a story from their childhood that still pisses them off. This is mine. I was 5 years old and my snotty older cousin was over at our house. I had just gotten a copy of Mike Tyson's Punch-Out for my birthday. He was getting his ass kicked by King Hippo and he got so angry he rage quit. But he didn't just rage quit, he ripped the cartridge out of the Nintendo and spit into it. Then he threw it across the room and stormed out. I told my parents what happened and they told his parents and they made him apologize, but the game was ruined. It would kind of play, but would freeze up all the time. My family barely had enough money to get me the game for my birthday, never mind buying it again. I was sure I would never be able to play it again. Then for Christmas this little shit got Mike Tyson's Punch-Out. So my older brother went over to his house and switched our ruined cartridge with his. It was awesome. Edit, holy shit. I usually hate it when people edit their post to point out how many upvotes their post has gotten, but over 80k? Guys, there are much better, much more deserving stories than this, but thank you. Not nearly in the same ballpark as the rest of these, but my in-laws always just walk right in like they own the place. Drives me ducking nuts. A couple years ago I put some vinyl window tinting on the front door to keep the house cooler in the summer. I could see out the window but no one could see in. I'd lock the door and enjoy the looks of confusion on their faces as they tried to open the door and couldn't. This triggered me. My mill would come into my house all the time but never when my husband was going to be in town. One time I was sick, and she walked in and then she walked into my bedroom, the dog was crated, and said I wasn't expecting you here. I borrowed back the key we gave her and never gave it back. Wasn't home when this happened but some family friend I've never met and their kid comes over one afternoon. Kid gets bored and decided it's a great idea to disassemble every Lego build I've kept over the last 10 years. Almost everything was built from imagination, so no instructions to rebuild again. I was devastated when I got home seeing Lego pieces spread across the entire floor of my room. Something similar happened to me. Mom's friend and her sons come over. The older one was about my age. We go to my room to play Lego, and the first thing the older one does is grabs my Star Wars set, rips it apart, and throws them around the room. I never did find all the pieces. Needless to say, I was pretty upset after that. His mom comes into the room, gives him a talking to, asks him why he did it. He shrugs and says he did it because he hates Star Wars. Anyway, the next time they came over, he gave me the innards of a slot car, presumably as an apology. I wasn't thrilled with half a slot car, but I didn't want to look ungrateful in front of my mom and his, so I accept it. I tried it out later and found out it was broken. Dyed her hair red in our bathroom sink, staining the brand new granite countertop, then dripped onto the new tile floor, then dripped onto the hardwood floor in the hallway, and ultimately slept in our guest bed with wet, freshly dyed red hair, staining the sheets and pillowcase. Jesus, this is unfathomable to me. I've been a long-term guest before. I was just slightly homeless at one point. I had dyed hair, and the color was in these reusable tubs, so it cost me nothing to maintain it. I just had to have a place to do it. Was so worried about not making a mess of my host's place. I got on my hands and knees and scrubbed the bottom of the shower with a magic eraser to clean off the small amount of residue that was left, before I even left the bathroom. Did accidentally leave a spot on the counter later on down the line, despite covering the area in newspaper and stuff, and I tried remedies until it was clean over several weeks. Also put one of my t-shirts over their pillows until I was sure I'd have no bleed. I was so paranoid about ruining their things, it just hurts my brain to know people do the same or more of a mess and don't even care. I appreciate the respect you had for your hosts. Uncle tried to fix our computer. It wasn't broken, he then broke it. Did the same to our perfectly working dishwasher. Then he denied everything. I'm thinking meth tinkering and now my most upvotes for a comment. Thanks, Dad. Oh. That's a thing? Explains the mountain of deconstructed cell phones my addict brother has taken apart. Till. Yep, and some rearranging of the house. They broke our one TV and didn't pay for a replacement. My family has always been dirt poor and my mom busted her ass to buy that shitty tube TV, too. I read these stories with a certain level of duck that person in mind because they're being shitty. It increases dramatically when I hear they broke the property of someone who struggled to pay for it. Hope the cunt gets their due in due time. Yes. We had a temporary roommate for a while when we moved back home to make things more affordable, a longtime friend of my husband's. Turned out to be a terrible roommate for many reasons I won't go into here, but he ruined every single one of my baking and bread pans. He used and lost all my Pyrex and Tupperwares, and after we had him move out he came back for a few things when we were gone and stole a ton of my kitchen gadgets. I was fighting to get on disability and struggling to pay bills and loved my beautiful kitchen things from better days. Edit, added in between Pyrex and Tupperware because that was weirdly controversial. We had a bunch of pizza in the fridge we'd ordered the night before they arrived. There were 3 other families already there, so we had ordered a lot and there were many much leftovers, and everyone who was there at the time had pitched in to pay. The one family who hadn't been there for pizza arrived the morning after and were talking about going out to eat. The families were all okay with this, thinking it'd be great to have lunch in individual families and get back together for dinner. Everyone was loading up, including the most recent arrival family, but when we drove off, they unloaded, went back inside and ate all the pizza. We would have told them it was fine if they had said, "Yo, could we eat that pizza for lunch?" But pretending they were going someplace and then sneaking back inside and eating it was so shady. Edit, Fact 1. They aren't poor, just really cheap. 2. This was my uncle and his family. 3. This was at my grandma's house. She had just passed and everyone was getting together for the funeral. My mom was basically in charge, and, since I'm the oldest grandchild at 24, I was heavily involved as well. 4. We locked the door, but every family had a key. 5. We did not confront them. It isn't worth it to get into it with them when we barely see them anyway. I think my mom would prefer to build a stronger bond with him and his family, since he is her little brother. P.S. They're staying at our house right now. Lol. That is so weird. I would feel so uncomfortable around those people if that happened to me. Stole some of my MS drugs. They aren't even fun drugs, they're expensive as holy hell. And I need that shit to not have an MS attack. Are you serious? What sort of total asshole does that? Had my wife's ex-husband turn up at the door to stay for 10 days. We moved to Australia from UK, he came over, ostensibly to see his daughter, and arrived at the door with a suitcase. His 10-year-old daughter was ecstatic. What do you do? We assumed he'd get a hotel-motel something, while living with us, broke a sandstone wedding present we had received from my brother. That guy. We never badmouthed him, just swallowed it all, with a sanguine smile. At 21, daughter says thanks for not telling me my dad is a cock, I've discovered he is myself. I nannied for single mum in Germany when I was 18, and her daughter's dad came over from America to visit before Christmas. He stayed with us for like 2 weeks and the whole thing was so ducking weird and uncomfortable, but likewise this girl idolized her dad. Can relate. You're molding small people, do the right thing, wait for them to realize, have a discussion about what happened. My in-laws hated me. We invited them over for Thanksgiving dinner and, upon arrival, they asked me to leave and come back a few hours later because they wanted to follow their tradition of preparing the meal alone as a family. They are now my ex-in-laws. Holy shit, when people are that abrasively rude, what can you even really do? They had very poor social skills and anxiety, which was a big part of this. They definitely meant to throw shade, but they didn't anticipate it being a showstopper. My tactic was to sit them down and flatly tell them they could stay for the dinner as we planned it, or they were free to go do dinner their way at their house. I think they chose the latter that time. They did the same when they said they'd only come to Christmas if no one exchanged gifts in their presence. Lol. I've been treated in a not as bad but similar fashion by an ex's family. We'd been together 5 years when they asked him to uninvite me for Christmas break so they could have more family time. We are in New York and my family was in Colorado, so I didn't have another family to go to. They're all ducking homeschooled, so they had family time all day every day. Yeah, that sounds similar. I'd recommend reading about enmeshed family systems. Families like that view outside influences of any kind as threats, so homeschooling and rejecting long-term partners all fits. It's not you. One of my best mates came to spend the night, so my folks decided to splash out and get Chinese takeout for everyone. I come from a family of 7, so he made 8. We got 5 to 6 dishes and 2 big tubs of fried rice. My mate helped himself to the entire first tub and, when confronted about it by me, helpfully pointed out that there was still another tub. For the 7 of us. In my fam, food is always an issue. Family dinners are like a feeding frenzy, and when I lived at home no food or leftovers were sacred. I once made a pot of sausage kraut for dinner for everyone. My mom's sisters weren't home yet, and I had to take a call in my room. My dad proceeded to help himself to 3 bowls of it. When I got back downstairs, There was barely one serving left. When I flipped out at my dad, he said he thought everyone had eaten, but no one else was home yet. I really enjoy living on my own now. When my mom used to make muffins, my dad would come downstairs and eat the tops off all of them. Another thing he liked to do was open a big block of cheese, take a bite out of it, then set it back in the fridge without closing it. He is a very inconsiderate man.